Okay, so we are rocking and rolling. Thank you very much for anyone who's listening, anyone who's here. This will be the first in what I hope will be many series of talks. So this will be through the whole NAVITAS community for anyone who's one-to-one or in the coaching program, or if you invite in, you're all here to share all your questions, problems, everything you've got revolving around the stuff that we do. So you might be a one-to-one client, you might be someone on distance coaching, you might have someone with as a key interest. Maybe you just use the app, as it were. The objective today is just to explain to you a bit more about direction, like what's happening, and also show you a bit more about what's in the app, and actually not to show you what's in it, but start to go through some of the principles in there and lay these down as a foundation for what we want to really achieve, something that I've been developing and evolving with over time. So I'm going to start off by just, all the, I was going to say, I'm going to give you a bit of story of who I am. Most of you already know who I am, but maybe you don't actually know a bit more about the backstory or actually what the training principles are, maybe because you're focusing on your own stuff at the moment. So I'm going to start just by introducing myself and going through. So as you all know, I'm probably your coach, but I was also, if I don't want to go back too far in history, I try not to tell a whole life story, but I was in the past a chef. I started when I was 14 in kitchens. My biggest love was just all food. I mean, that was the thing that got me. It was the flow of the kitchen. It was health. It was everything. My teenage years, I was just, to be honest, I was obsessed with health. I grew up in the countryside as a child. To me, it was being kicked out the door and told, come back at tea time. Just go off, get on a bike, come back, be injured. That's how it usually works. And that was how I experienced my childhood. It was outdoors, happy to be alone, as it were, not like in a place, but, quite just comfortable, just like enjoying the nature and growing things as well, and being very active. That was the influence of my life. My father was a black belt karate teacher. He used to teach me a lot of stuff when I was young. I still remember the time and it took me years to actually get this, obviously. Sounds stupid, but I remember pointing basically at my core, like, remember, this is where strength comes from. And obviously, it wasn't talking about a six pack. He was talking about where strength comes from. That's one of the biggest lessons that a lot of people really still don't get. And he was completely right about this. So you can see some of the lessons started to unfold. And yeah, no worries, Michael. Thank you for being here. If you've got any questions, obviously throw them in. I can always reply later too. And so yeah, I kind of moved forward. I've always been training, always been my thing. Health's been a big one. To me, it was just something that was seen so essential and important. It gave me a bit of a pillar of strength throughout my own life, like mental health, physical health. It gave me a sense of freedom, confidence, strength, and I wanted to carry that on. And food was a big one. As being a chef, I went through head chefing, I've done all the washing up from a young age, prepping, went through all this. So a lot of this was embedded in my head about how to organize, prepare, curate these beautiful foods, the flavors, like all this stuff just sticks in my head, these memories. And I love that. And that gave me opportunities in the future to travel and work with some other incredible people in different places. Now, it's not all going to be about me, but the whole training side came from when I'd gone through a lot of stuff in my 20s. I still wanted to compete. I still wanted to do something big. And I know we all have that deep down feeling where we want to really put our mark or show something to ourselves. Maybe it's to our friends, maybe it's to our families, but we just don't want to feel like we're not something. We want to have a go at something. We want to explore our strength. And I use that line. It's the same one in the app. I put it at the top, and it's something that's quite true. We should kind of explore ourselves. That physicality is so important. So I went through that in my 20s, but I was getting to a point where I injured myself very badly, and I was getting very burnt out. And that's kind of where, for the first time in my life, I actually started to dislike exercise, which then wrapped me into being very down. And I met a fantastic coach who was from Strong First, and this kind of where the modern era starts. That's where I got into Strong First and kettlebells. He was very, very kind in offering classes to show me how I can better train, but also look after myself, and how to believe in myself again when I was very down. And that changed my perspective. So I went through the training. I also met my now wife, more or less around that time, who was very supportive in all this, and kind of went through it and went on a whole different journey from times of kind of Brexit COVID era, and moved on from there. So bringing the love of the food and the cooking, which is something I enjoyed, and wanting to do something more with it. I always said, used to work in restaurants looking out, going, oh, this is great food and beautiful, but everyone's here for luxury. And I know it's fine, we all love it, but I want to do something more with it. I felt like we should be doing something more important. Food's just not just a luxury, it's just this fantastic thing that we need connection with. It serves our health. And that's where the idea, the phrase again that I'm always telling people is creating food that not only tastes great, it's healthy, but it doesn't sacrifice your taste buds. It should be fantastic, and we should be looking at how we can both eat food that is sustainable, it's healthy, it hits the taste buds, and it's easy. There's this big crossover we want to hit there. And from the training side, it's always about trying to pull this stuff together in a way that really prioritized human health and natural health, because you could see that one can't survive without the other, and that we are intrinsically more healthy when we have this natural environment around us. There are even studies that show that patients recover faster when there is nature and greenery inside of them. Like just us being involved makes a big difference. Having nature involved makes a big difference. So this kind of brings us on to the modern era where getting through all that stuff. I became a coach and I was starting to try and pull this stuff across field because training was something like I loved and I loved doing with people as well. And I don't teach big sports teams or anything like that, but as in helping really show people how to understand their bodies and what strength can do for them. To me, that ticks a lot of boxes. I love working with people on this, and if you're a client and you know that, like I find it very interesting, the technical stuff, but also how it feels and watching people succeed. Like that's a great thing, and I would love everyone to be able to have the time in the world to do that. So that leads us kind of pretty much come up to modern times when I've really found this spot now, as people might know, it's NAVITAS. Yes, it started with that name, and back then I wasn't sure what I was making. I thought it was just going to be PTing, but that's obviously completely evolved with the world of coaching and holistic element. And now we've got to this position where what is Navitas? What is this approach? What are we actually going to do with it? And this is where it kind of molds together, where I noticed the rigidity of training was being so counterproductive to the way we moved, but also to what we can achieve and how we should feel. That biggest feeling I used to have as a young boy or teenager at that point was freedom and movement, like feeling great, like running in the woods, throwing stuff, whatever it was. Like that to me was just great. I just loved the thrill of just being out there, being under your own steam. That's something that really gets lost. It really can get lost. And then we're just stuck in gyms, these little siloed brick and mortar places that we go, well, this is a gym. This is where I tick the box that I've done this thing in the week. And suddenly our health becomes disassociated with our daily lives in many ways. Like it's just this little checklist you have to do rather than something that we actually believe in and we value, and it's there and we want to make it part of our lives. Like it should be there. So this method now comes across of exploring the strength in different ways. We look at natural flow of movement. So we're looking at all those natural based patterns, the crawling, the walking, the jumping, the throwing. Everyone knows I love to do crawling stuff. And you might have noticed this if you train with me for a long time now, you would have seen that evolution in both what I practice and then what I teach people and how to apply it. A lot of the core principles still stick, but they now come through something else. And then we're layering that on top with kettlebell training, which is from a strength perspective, we're using the weights as a skill for weighted work, not because barbells are rubbish or something like that, or like gym stuff doesn't work. It's not just because of that, it's just that we're looking for the most simple tool that is most effective to teaching you how to move well with weights. And then the kettlebell itself is going to be minimalistic, it's versatile at the same time. So it actually is a simple thing that gives you loads of options. It's super creative, perfect. So the more we can kind of put this style together, where we've got better underlying movement, so we're looking at gaits and patterns and natural movement like throwing, jumping. If we can build this, but then make sure our more weighted work, let's call it our power work, our athletic work, we're using the bells for, we can kind of have this minimalist approach to being athletic, to moving better, and having a healthier life. And that's where kind of the framework now comes in with the training. So if anyone out there is going, okay, what's the approach exactly? What am I getting from this? Like, I want to train, like, oh, you like seeing like this is what we're going towards, this is what we're trying to go through at this stage. So anyone here who's, like I said, who has been trained with me recently, you'll know that there's a lot of crawling. We started breathing, crawling, mobility. And this kind of filters into skill work, strength, power, conditioning, and kind of go off the end with stretching the session. That's kind of a micro view. This has been constant evolution and something that you can really make sure you infuse in your sessions. One of the biggest lessons I said was strength from the inside out. And my father taught me that, and it's stuck with me to this day. And I cannot stress how important that is. You know, how many books have you seen about breathing? How many books on the power of the breath? Okay, this is completely true, because when you can control your diaphragm where it is on one side, when you learn how to actually create intra-abdominal pressure, when you know how to about what bracing is, when you know about how to create strength, you can create more tension. If you can do this, then you know how to direct your energy. It knows how to feel better, because if the inside where strength moves through, attention moves through, then you're going to have healthier movement because you've got control over it. So strength does start from the inside out. And it's not just about the weight. And this is where, for anyone who's has seen my social media for a while will know where I always say, don't worry about the weight, worry about feeling. That's kind of meant what that is meant to mean in essence. Okay, we want to worry about the feeling and not the weight. The weight is just simply a variable or a tool, stimulus that we're using to improve our control or whatever we're doing. Again, this isn't going to negate anything. Like, obviously, if you need more weight, you need more weight. Like, that is a legit variable. We're not dissing anything like that. Sports science is very clear on that. But the thing that we do want to map out first is your underlying patterns, making sure breathing is ticked off, your general control is ticked off, your ability, how you feel, can you actually do rotational work, and then evolving this into more adventurous stuff that so you feel that you are capable and you are free and you're happy with whatever challenge might come across from you. I hope that starts to sum up more of the essence of what I'm trying to create, or that I believe in, and that having people in the community is going to be very important for this. So everyone who's in it, I want to say thank you already, who have shown support for a long time. All those who have just joined, and thank you so much for joining. I hope you start to see more of what this is about and what we're trying to grow. And if you ever want to know more about it, or you feel you maybe not enough in single sessions and you want to learn more, there's stuff in the app if you've got access to that, or you can always ask me questions. I have to explain more of the principles that underlie this, because the more that we can create a life for ourselves where health is prioritized and nature's, I think you are going to have an incredibly happier, healthier, longer life. There's nothing worse than seeing friends or family around you deteriorating in any kind of way, especially if you want to live a long, healthy life. So we want to be able to help them as well. And there is so much information out there that we should and can do these things. There's no reason why we can't. So that is kind of the summary of the mission and the vision of what the community is for. Like, asking you questions, how do you move better? It can be simple technique questions. It can be habit questions, because we are our environment. If we have a better environment, then we can do more. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I will show the app page, because I guess I will sort of drill down on one particular topic today and just kind of highlight that. So what I will do is just share this. Okay. Hopefully you can now all see this. The ebooks and reading. So I'm going to jump straight into the section here. For those who haven't seen the app, it's nice, simple, built out here on Notion. And we're going to look into the ebooks. Okay. So I'm going to game changer principles. This is something I advise, like, anyone's got time to read through, please do. This is super important. I've been making small changes recently, so it becomes more clear. It was mainly just about the athletic realm, but I think so much of this will touch your wide life as well. Because a lot of the principles underlying this I also found in the kitchen, and I can explain a lot of this without trying to just read straight from the page. So, for example, basic building blocks form the part of everything, and that is exactly true, both in the kitchen and the training. Like, if we've got the breathing mechanics, if we've got good knife skills, if we've got all these little things that we can master, then everything else starts falling into place, and you've got this like palette of skills and things that you can use to do anything with, but you have to kind of learn how to do them first. So this is why I'm always going to tell people, like, I'm not here just to tell you reps and sets and stuff. You need to actually learn some parts of this and practice. The strong first principles underlie a lot of the stuff, or a lot of the principles that I then talk about, as well as some others. But instead of calling stuff a workout, we use the word practice. And this is such an important one because you are practicing something. You're not just there to sweat buckets, walk off, and forget you even did it. Because in that way, your measuring stick is only going to be how much you sweated, how many kilos you did, and you won't actually remember. You won't actually make progress on that because you're just trying to get sweaty every time. And that doesn't actually mean you progressed in any way. It just means you got sweaty, which can mean anything. Could mean it was a really light day and you just went really fast, or it was sweaty, or maybe it was too hard. It was painful, but you got sweaty because it's just too difficult. So there's not really a measure stick for anything, apart from it was too intense. Okay. So this is why we're trying to talk a bit more about practice and what we're doing. I'm not going to talk about vision too much here because I've kind of talked about this already today, about what I did, but also what I hope everyone else feels about their own vision for their health and their athleticism. So we have talked a little bit about quality and quantity just now. What I'd like to kind of get onto is a bit of this more inside out misunderstanding. So we're going to be on stress and rest. Okay, I'm talking about balance because not every day is a Superman's day. Okay, and this is important. I've tried to evolve this word in many ways. The definition, people think balance is in there shouldn't be too much stress, there shouldn't be too much rest. It should be happy, it should be easy, like, oh, not too hard, not too much. And it's not quite the definition that I think balance should be. Balance, let's take a great gymnast, for example. A gymnast can balance perfectly, technically, completely still, like a statue. But they're only good at balance because when you zoom in times 100, they're actually making like 1,000 micro adjustments as they're going. They're going on and off, on and off, on and off, to constant readjustments to hold. They're not static. That's impossible to be static. But at the micro level, they're constantly moving. So the definition changes. It's your ability to change between two states. Okay, it's really, really important, this. Balance is your ability to change between two states. Now, when we take this and we put it into the equation that I remember reading many years ago, and I should have put a book reference in here. I think it is actually called one of these. I can easily find it, but stress plus rest equals growth. Okay. This was written by two international coaches. One was a business coach, one was a sports coach. And they were looking for understanding what rest in performance, like what is the thing that's driving us. And this is kind of the equation they use throughout the book that really resonates with me. And I really think that you can create big changes in your life when you start to see this overarching equation and its power. Because stress can be both positive and negative, and rest can be negative and positive. Too much rest can be bad. So actually, when we open up the word stress and rest, we can look at positive, we can look at negative, and rest, positive and negative. With stress, we can look at like what's stimulating the body, what's changing it. So it's like exercise is a stress, it is a stimulus, but positive one, which is what we want, it can be negative. Smoking, obvious one. Okay. Obesity, work stress, relationships, one of the, like everything can be stressful. It can change us. Stress affects us. It's like one big bucket. It's a really good analogy. When you throw this stuff, when you have all these things, they all go and they react to the body. So you get stressed when there's so many things on your plate, and all you're thinking all day are, oh God, what about financial stress? What about social stress? What about work stress? What about physical stress? If I'm tired, like everything's in pain. Like you got all these things and they need solving. Your body's playing that out pretty similarly. It gives you headaches, it makes you feel exhausted, you can't do anymore, you probably, maybe physiologically it's appearing in pain, you're getting pain and achy joints because you're stressed and there's no relief. Okay. And you can, of course, be in rest. There is such thing, absolute rest, literally doing nothing, which most people don't do. It's very hard to find that these days. Rest can also come across in terms of nutrition, sleep, lifestyle, exercise. to an extent, depending on the activity. Some will refer to it as active rest, for example. And your ability to switch between these, so it's not having a perfect one, but it's about knowing, we're using this as a tool to guide where you are now. Use it as a map. So you imagine a quadrant of positive, negative stress, positive, negative rest. Okay, you can go through these and think, okay, like, where are you now? What could you change? And you can start to kind of see how this could open up on your quadrant. Where is too much stress sitting? Because this leads into the nervous system as well. If you're always stressed, then you're never going to relax. And we need that ability to change. And this rolls out physically, not just mentally. So if you can get your rest better, then you can grow. If you're always overly stressed, too much in the stress bucket, you guessed it, you're not going to grow much. And we talk about growth in a somewhat literal, but also metaphorical here. So you're not always just going to be packing on muscle, is not what we're always talking about. But you're not going to maybe make the strength changes you want as fast. You may be hypertrophy, muscle gain. You're not going to make it as fast. Maybe you don't lose the weight you wanted as fast because you're stressed, because there's too much happening. And you can't control other factors to different degrees. So you can see how the growth is the result of the stimulus in the equation, like how are you actually working these factors? And if you only ever think, I'm going to ignore sleep, sleep doesn't matter, I can sleep when I'm dead, that really dumb mentality that I don't understand, then yeah, you're not going to get far. Sure, we should push ourselves, and it's more like we're going to be built for these short-term pushes and things. That's fine, we're adaptable, we get over that. But in the long term, we've got to look at ourselves and go, okay, how can I get that long-term trajectory towards better growth? And that's going to be picking up on areas where there's maybe too much stress, where rest needs to be better to give you opportunity to grow. So maybe sleep needs to be looked at. That could be one defining factor. We know that people on weight loss can have issues with sleep, can literally be a thing holding them back. Sure, calories might be more or less in line with a deficit, but they can't do any more because they're just too tired. They're not getting the sleep. Their body is just not going to do it. Your body doesn't like change. You need to remember that. Your body doesn't like to change. So you have to give it the right conditions to do it. Okay. Oh, so I'll just skip through those. Let's go back to that. So strengthening inside out. So. And this is why we start off with the athletic domain, because if we can prove this to ourselves through this equation, and we can learn the ability to balance better, then we can know that we can shift the needle at 0.1%. Okay. So what do we do for that? We start with breathing. As big as background, what we talked about, strength from the inside out. How do we make that work? So we can look at the mechanics of it specifically, and also your awareness of it. Okay. Now I could kind of take you through, and you can have a go at this yourself, but something we've already kind of touched on about breathing and movement. But we've got awareness and identity here, and then isolated practice, strength, and integration. Okay. When breathing is better, the diaphragm can move as well. And you can actually look, it's meant to work in tandem with the pelvic floor. And what can actually happen is that when you get overstressed, typically a tightness will come up here in the neck, in the back. And then if you're always in a hunch position as well, if you think about how the back gets pulled up like this, the chest gets pushed in a bit like a concave position. And then you're trying to breathe into your chest, because that's what we know when we get stressed breathing, people breathe a lot into the chest here, okay? So then you get a bit of tightness, and then you get stuck like this. And then if the resulting issue is not dealt with, then you can also continue to use this pattern without breathing and taking a moment to actually breathe in deep, relax, pull the diaphragm down, learn how to actually create better breathing. And you will almost automatically feel better. It does happen. Okay. And these all relate because all the muscles across the core all match up with each other. Okay. We are multiple systems thing. Okay. Like we're not just here's muscle, here's tendon, here's individual isolated muscle. It just doesn't work like that. Everything you do happens across the body. Okay. So if you want to try this, there's a whole section here that explains how to practice the 1990 drill. And then with this, we use this to apply it into the natural movements that we were talking about before around crawling learning how to use maybe the hollow hold or the plank are ones to show about intention, topic for another day. So we use breathing integrated, isolated first. We learn how to breathe better. Then we start to integrate that with gentle movement. Then we learn to do it with bigger movement. So it becomes easier to apply into greater movement. And then you'll notice this in your daily life as well. If you can breathe better in your daily life, you'll find everything much easier, because awareness is the number one thing. We all need a feedback cycle. So guys, that just covers the first section here. You can go away and have a little read off. Okay, this is strength from the inside out, from the inside out. Let's stop sharing there. I hope for today that has given you a bit of an insight into one the vision and mission of what we're trying to build in the community, and what I'd like to hear more about from people. What your questions, what you want to learn more about, what's going to be most important for pushing you in the right direction, what do you need? But also, here are some principles today that you can apply directly into your life, into your training, that's going to make a strong difference. Okay, because we all know weight is not the answer, it's the feeling. Follow the feeling, not the weight. If you've got any questions on today and you want more details, please feel free to message me. I will get back to you directly on those. Otherwise, thank you for your time today, and I will see you on the next call.